Hi there. Let's talk about a very real and serious threat to democracy that could be in a church in your town. If you live in certain parts of Kentucky or if you attend certain churches in Kentucky, I'm sure that you have heard the line, "You can't be a Democrat and a Christian." Besides the fact that that wears me out and isn't true, it leads to another thing that is more serious than that sentiment. There is a movement in Christianity that not only believes that this is a Christian nation or was founded as a Christian nation, which it wasn't, but they believe that. And not only believes that certain social mores, such as gays and so on and so forth, are unbiblical and immoral, these people go further. They believe that only Christians should be elected to office. And in fact, some of them are pushing for something called a theocracy. Now, if you understand the suffix "cracy," you've got democracy, which is government of the people. You've got autocracy, which is government by one person. Theocracy is government by God, except since God doesn't have a way to actually come here and govern, it is government by people appointed by God. So in other words, preachers and priests and apostles and people like that. So a theocracy is where the nation's laws and rules are decided by Christians. And not just any Christians, let's be clear. This is not something that all Christians agree with or all Christians believe. But it is a group of people. And the movement overall is called Christian nationalism. Now, nationalism is not limited to Christian nationalism. Nationalism, for instance, was part of what Hitler was about. This was German nationalism. And it's about only certain people qualified to live in our country or to run our country or whatever the case was. In Hitler's case, of course, it was the Aryan race, and they believed the Aryan race was superior. In Christian nationalism, they believe that only Christians are really qualified to serve in public office or to make decisions, so on and so forth. Now, before you start saying, well, I know some people who say some of those things you're saying, and I don't think they go that far. That's right. There are different levels of this movement, all the way from what I would call unreflective, which means that they haven't really thought through what they're saying. These are the people who say, well, America was founded to be a Christian nation. There's a thing called Reconstructionism, which basically aims to reconstruct society around God's laws. There's a whole bunch I could say about this. And in fact, I have an entire presentation on Christian nationalism if your church or your club or your organization ever wants me to come present it. Then there's dominionism. And this group works off of the "I have given you dominion over the earth" verse in Genesis. And they believe that Christians are supposed to have dominion over everything. And part of the dominionism movement is what's called the Seven Mountains movement, which means that there are 7 facets of society that they want to be in charge of. Things like the arts and government and education and so on and so forth. So that's dominionism. Now, these are all sort of people out there doing their thing, but then there are a couple of really organized groups. There is Project Blitz. Project Blitz is a very well organized, very well funded movement with a playbook and an agenda, and they have very simple things that they want to get accomplished through the legislature, and so they start with things that seem innocuous. And we've seen them in Kentucky. So, for instance, the national motto display. We want you to put up in every school, "In God We Trust." Then teaching the Bible in public schools. That's the next step. National motto license plate funding. So, "In God We Trust" on your license plates. Religious Freedom Day proclamations. These are all things to get everyday citizens who in the past would have said, wait a minute, I thought we were supposed to have separation of church and state, going, well, this is not that bad. But then they move into discrimination in foster care and adoption. Only Christians should be allowed to be foster parents. And then they get to religious refusals in health care. In other words, conscience bills. Does that sound familiar? We've had those in Kentucky, meaning my religion trumps your health care needs. I don't care that you're sick. I don't care that you have a prescription from your doctor. I can refuse to serve you. So this is Project Blitz and where they're going. But then we move to the last and most serious threat, and this is what I call Christo-fascist. Now, if you remember, there's a quote that's attributed to Sinclair Lewis. When fascism comes to America, it will be wrapped in the flag and carrying a cross. Sinclair Lewis probably didn't write that, but he said some things pretty close to it. But it's a great saying. When fascism comes to America, it will be wrapped in the flag and it will be carrying a cross. Here's some things from Wikipedia about fascism so we be sure we understand what we're talking about. Fascism is a far-right, authoritarian, ultra-nationalist political ideology and movement characterized by a dictatorial leader, centralized autocracy, militarism, forcible suppression of opposition, belief in a natural social hierarchy, subordination of individual interests for the perceived good of the nation and race, and strong regimentation of society and the economy. If you listen to that definition and then you listen to some of the Christo-fascists and what they want to achieve, they go right hand in hand. From Daily Kos, there is another definition. Christo-fascism refers to the use of the faith of Christianity as a cover for totalitarian ideology. Go read Project 2025, and if you don't want to read all 900 and something pages of it, go read some of the summaries. Christian nationalism is all through it. We want to restore America back to the 50s when Christians were the dominant religion and a lot of other religions were suppressed. They want to run this country as a Christian theocracy with a strong central government, and they want to take away rights when they do it. Trust me, if Donald Trump is elected, Donald Trump says that he loves Christians. He said it just the other day. He himself has never claimed to be, well, he's claimed to be a Christian, but his life doesn't seem to show that. They don't care. They use the Cyrus example from the Old Testament. God strikes straight with a crooked stick. They believe that Donald Trump is God's instrument to bring about this government that they want, this new society, this Christian nation. And if they get put in, we're talking about not only like abortion, we're talking about homosexuality being outlawed. We may be talking about interracial marriage being outlawed. Some of these people go so far as to say that the Old Testament laws about certain things should be followed. Homosexuals should be executed. Yes, that's in their belief system. So if you are wondering about why I say that this could be down the street from you in a church, it could even be in your church, go listen to the rhetoric. Listen to what the pastor says in the sermons. Listen to what the people say. Listen to how they cheer, perhaps, for we need to restore this country to a Christian basis. And then ask them, do you believe that non-Christians can be elected? Do you believe that non-Christians should be elected? Do you believe that only Christians should run this country? And then finally, do you believe that only Christians, your type of Christian, by the way, not those wild liberal Christians, but your type of Christian, do you believe that they're the only ones who should be allowed to live? Push it. Ask the questions. And let's see what you find out. Christian nationalism is real. It is a real threat. There are Christo-fascists around the country. There are Christo-fascists in Kentucky. There are Christo-fascists in some Kentucky pulpits. So pay attention, study up on it, go read about it, and then get to where you can recognize it and be ready to stand against it.